Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing another quick draft of Phyrexia, All Will Be One. Without further ado, let's get into the draft. Our rare in this pack is pretty solid, not really a bomb, but a 2-mana 2-2 with quite a bit of upside here, draining our opponent for life as our other creatures die. We could definitely start with the Ran here, so if you just wanted to rare draft, that would be a decent pickup. Start heading in the direction of a black deck. There are some cards here I like a little bit better for limited, for draft in general. We have some pretty premium commons, the main one being the Chimney Rabble here, 4 mana for a 3/3 haste and a 1/1 Phyrexian Goblin. Plays super well in this aggressive format with the ability to attack and hold up a blocker the turn you play it. We also just have good 2 mana aggressive creatures, which are at a premium in the format as well. Duelist of Deep Faith and Mandible Justiciar being 2 good white 2-drop creatures, the Duelist for toxic strategies, the Justiciar for artifact strategies, and the Blight Belly Rat being black's best 2 mana common creature, if we wanted to go in that direction. Although, if we wanted a good black 2-drop, we could just take Fran. The card I'm going to take here, though, is one of our uncommons, Unctus's Retrofitter. I'm a very big fan of the artifact-based blue decks. I think they're kind of the only viable blue decks in this strategy, but they are pretty powerful when they come together, and Unctus's Retrofitter, kind of the most important card for the strategy. This is a 3-mana 2/3 that's going to make one of your artifacts become a 4/4 artifact creature for as long as it remains on the battlefield. So with Unctus's Retrofitter, we can animate some kind of non-creature artifact like a Skull Bomb or something, start hitting our opponent with a 4/4 on turn 3, and often you can even, if you're in like blue-white or something, play a turn 2 artifact creature like the Justiciar, and then just make that creature become a 4/4 with the Retrofitter, and it would still maintain its abilities. So that would be a 4/4 with lifelink that gets +1/+1 whenever you play additional artifacts. So Retrofitter is the most important card in the format if you want to play an artifact aggressive strategy. And I do like the archetype, and I don't get to play blues super often in the format, so I'm going to take this opportunity and take the Unctus's Retrofitter. Pack 1, pick 2 now. We have a couple pretty sweet follow-ups to choose from for Unctus's Retrofitter. We have Dune Mover and Malcator's Watcher being nice 2-mana artifact creatures, the Mover being more flexible, fitting into any deck and fixing our mana, the Watcher being more powerful with Retrofitter, becoming a 4/4 flying vigilance there. But I'm going to pass up on these for another colorless card, another artifact, the Atraxa's Skitterfang. This card is just the most powerful, flexible card in the pack, where this can end up in pretty much any deck in the format because it's colorless and it has a decent ability when you're declaring attacks, letting you have whatever keyword ability you want on one of your creatures every combat. So I like the Skitterfang a good amount because no matter what we end up drafting, it'll make the cut, and it is an artifact creature, so it still does synergize with our blue-based artifact strategy if we end up being able to head in that direction. So Skitterfang is the pickup for me. Other good cards to follow up the Retrofitter are the Dune Mover and the Watcher. Other just blanketly strong cards in the pack are the Troll for oil decks, Hive Master for toxic, and Predation as green removal. Skitterfang will be the pick though. Pack 1, pick 3, we have 2 really nice options, one being the Indoctrination Attendant. 4 mana for a 3/4, return any non-land permanent you control to your hand to create a 1/1 Might. The Might is an artifact creature to trigger your stuff that cares about that, and blue-white is the most powerful artifact-based color combo. We also have Escaped Experiment for just a 2 mana 2/1 artifact creature. Not super great because it only has that 1 toughness, but if we need 2 drops, this is a filler one we can pick up. Usually can get this later in the packs though, so I'm not that interested in taking it pick 3. So I think I'm probably going to go with Indoctrination Attendant here. This has some very good synergy with any equipment we pick up in the format. Most equipment in the format will make a 2/2 when we play them, so we get to do that, then pick up the equipment and replay it later. Get some more value. This also works with our Unctus's Retrofitter. If we use the Retrofitter to make something a 4/4, and that 4/4 ends up dying, we could pick up the Retrofitter so that we can recast it again later. So Indoctrination Attendant just plays pretty well in the blue-white and white-red color pairs, and I'm pretty excited to take it here. Now there is another direction we could go that's kind of interesting, which is red-blue artifacts. There are 2 red artifacts in this pack, Shrapnel Slinger and Churning Reservoir, and red does have a lot of equipment to fill out the artifact theme. I feel like that color pair is a lot less consistent. We do kind of have to get rewarded by opening up the right cards, whereas in white there's just a lot of random artifacts, kind of no matter what happens in the draft, so a little safer to go for the Indoctrination Attendant here. But if you wanted to get spicy, you could go for like Churning Reservoir to work with Skitterfang and hit the artifact theme, but a little risky for my blood. We'll go for Indoctrination Attendant. Pack 1, pick 4, we have two major options here, the artifact creatures, Dune Mover at 2 mana, the Flexible Mana Fixer, and Transplant Theorist at 4, which is higher payoff for the deck, but it is a lot slower at 4 mana with only 2 power as well. Theorist also tends to go a little later because we're kind of the only deck that would want it, so I'm actually going to take Dune Mover here, make sure we actually have at least one 2 mana card this early in the draft. Grab a Dune Mover. Good with Retrofitter. It's great to have 2 mana stuff, and it'll fit into our deck no matter what it ends up being. We'll slap it in there. Well, for pack 1, pick 5, we're going to have to stay open to moving in a different direction here because the blue cards are Glisten or Seer and Bring the Ending, which are both fine. They can be your like 20th to 23rd playables, okay cards to have in the deck. Duelist Deep Faith is a pretty good white card that we could definitely run in this deck. However, there is one card in this pack that is much powerful than everything else, the Bladehold War Whip. 3 mana for a 2/2 with double strike, and then you leave behind this equipment to move around elsewhere to give other things double strike. This card is just really, really powerful. It's a huge signpost uncommon, showing us that red-white could be open in the draft pod. Tremendously powerful card, and we can't really pass it up here. So we're going to take this, and we're going to be open to moving into red-white if that's what the bots are telling us to do. It would be a little unfortunate, because I feel like I've drafted this color pair the last 3 drafts in a row now, especially if we end up in the color pair again. But it's just very clearly the pick out of this pack. The best card by far, and I don't think there's much you can argue with. In that take there, it just is the best card, and in taking it here, we'd only have to cut 1 card. Everything else can still end up in a red-white deck. So we'll take War Whip. We're not committing to red-white, but we're leaving it as an option if we see more good red-white equipment stuff. So we probably want to start focusing on white cards primarily, so we can go blue-white or white-red, whatever happens from this point on. Alright, pack 1, pick 6 is going to be a little interesting because there are 0 white cards in the pack. We have Hazardous Blast, which would be pretty fine in the red-white deck. There's going to be a lot of decks with a lot of 1 toughness creatures that this can destroy. And even if your opponent doesn't have any, sometimes you can just win the game off of making their field not block. However, there's also Chrome Prowler, which is really, really good for the blue-white artifacts deck. So I think Chrome Prowler is just higher potential upside. I've cut Hazardous Blast from the red-white decks before. I think it's better in like red-green, red-black. I don't think red-white super needs it. But it is a solid addition, whereas Chrome Prowler I feel like I almost never cut in the blue-white deck. Having a card that you can play at instant speed, specifically an artifact you can play at instant speed, just does a lot of tricky things with Mandible Justiciar getting +1/+1 when it hits the board, with your Eye of Malcators becoming 4/4s when it hits the board, stuff like that. Chrome Prowler is just really important to the blue-white archetype. Alright, now we have some decent blue cards, but we also have a pretty decent white card that's an okay filler card for blue-white or white-red. This is by far at its best in white-black and white-green, where it's an excellent pickup, but it's still an okay card in, again, blue-white or white-red, because in blue-white, you play this early, trade it off, get a little random artifact creature to do things with, and in red-white, you play this early, and it's a cheap little creature you can slap some equipment onto, that replaces itself with something else you can slap equipment onto when it dies. So Chorus is fine either way we go, and because it's a white card, it'll make the cut either way. For pack 1, pick 8, we have Lightbringer. That's not the most exciting card, even in red-white equipment, so I'm not that into it, and I might just take a Chrome Prowler over it. In red, we have Shrapnel Slinger, which is also just fine, kind of filler level. We'll take the Chrome Prowler here, see what we get in pick 9. We get super rewarded in pick 9. Mandible Justiciar is going to be really good in our red-white deck or our blue-white deck, and it's definitely the pickup. It's just more flexible than Rabble. Rabble's really powerful as well, and a great sign that if I wanted to just keep drafting red-white equipment in these quick drafts, it's starting to look like I could do it every single draft and never get punished. But in the interest of doing things that are different and taking the card that fits still into that red-white deck, if we end up there, we'll take the Justiciar. Now pack 1, pick 10, another great sign for our blue-white artifacts deck. We get that Malcator's Watcher. to Wheel, another card that synergizes incredibly well with our Unctus's Retrofitter. I'm very happy to play it. For pack 1, pick 11, we have Wheeled the Escaped Experiment. That'll be a slam dunk auto include. One thing to mention here that I haven't said yet, since we're in a quick draft and we have all the time in the world to discuss picks, the tap lands here, I'm not really mentioning them because in this format there are plenty playable 1-drops, so you end up with decks that usually have about 3+ 1-mana cards, like 5 2-mana cards, plenty of 3 mana, and so on. So you'll find yourself playing, well, spending all of your mana every turn quite frequently, where you will get punished pretty hard for playing a tap land. So there's a lot of formats where these would be really good at helping you not flood out, and they still do that here. The problem is you just get punished for playing tap lands harder in this format than almost any other, as there's just often you'll have an opening hand where you want to play a 1-mana card, 2-mana card, 3-mana card, and you can't do that if one of your lands comes into play tapped. You'll have to go 1-mana card, 2-mana card, and then turn 3 tap land and another 2-mana card instead of curving out, so definitely pretty low on these. I still play them when I get them, but I don't really prioritize taking them at all. So we'll take Escaped Experiment here. We did Wheel the Transplant Theorist, pick 12. Pretty good sign that the bots are not taking any blue artifact synergy cards. Not actually a fan of Bring the Ending too much in this format, and in particular in this deck, because quite often we're going to be tapping out to play stuff during our turn to stay aggressive. Like I'm always going to want to play like Retrofitter turn 3, so we're not really going to have the mana up for Bring the Ending till late in the game, unless I specifically have Chrome Prowlers in my hand to hold up, so not super into it. I'll just take the Glistener Seer for some scry. And Meldweb Strider is a fine card at the top end of the curve for this kind of strategy. Pack 2, pick 1 now. A few pretty sweet options. We have another Chrome Prowler, but that would be our third, so I'm not super interested in it. Another Attendant, that would be our second. It'd be a pretty decent addition. And then we have Basilica Shepherd, which would be our first copy of that card. I think I'm going to go for Basilica Shepherd here. This is a much better 5-mana card than our Meldweb Strider, and it still fits our themes well, where we'll have 2 artifacts enter the battlefield when we play this to trigger our cards like Transplant Theorist and Mandible Justiciar. So Basilica Shepherd, pretty great pickup here. That's what I'll roll with. Not really even mentioning Graz because unfortunately the format's aggressive enough that this big 8-mana Juggernaut not castable in most games. So we'll take Basilica Shepherd here. Again, probably should be open to just taking Volt Charge and pushing into that red-white equipment deck, but in the interest of variety, we're going to stick to our blue-white artifacts build, and it's plenty open in this draft pod. Well, our pack 2 pick 2 is going to be a little bit awkward here because none of these cards are cards that I'm a big fan of in the blue-white artifact deck. Logbook looks like it would fit really well into this deck, but I find it to generally just be too slow every time. Same with the Infested Flesh Cutter. And most of our commons we've seen before, and they're all just pretty slow, dirtily kind of cards. So I'm just going to rare draft a Bloated Contaminator. I mean, it's a ridiculous kind of toxic card, and if something super weird happens, we could end up in like green-white Toxic or blue-green Proliferate. Feels very unlikely, but I'm just not going to play any of the blue or white cards in the pack, so might as well take a Bloated Contaminator. Pack 2, pick 3, we've got 2 cards competing, Gold Warden's Helm and Mirren Bardiche. These are both pretty good with Indoctrination Attendant because we can pick the equipment up, replay it, get another 2/2. So I like them quite a bit with that. And they're also just solid in the archetype in general because they're putting an artifact on the board while putting a creature on board. I think I'm going to go for Gold Warden's Helm just because it works a little better with Attendant since we get to play the Helm on turn 3 into the Attendant on turn 4. The only issue with taking this here is we do have 4 3-mana cards already. It could be a little awkward on the curve, but it's not like we can run that many 5-drops either, so I don't think I'm going to play more than 1 Bardiche, and we might be able to wheel this, just take it later. So we'll take the Gold Warden's Helm. Pack 2, pick 4, we get the excellent Mandible Justiciar. Get an additional copy of this, curve out with a nice aggressive lifelink creature, sometimes even use our Retrofitter on it. Can't say enough about Justiciar in the archetype. Some very good green-red cards here, Cinderslash Ravager and Vorak both being super good for that archetype, but we're definitely blue-white here. Take our Justiciar. And this is the kind of pack you want to see when you start drafting blue-white. We have a lot of options here. We currently have 0 non-creature spells. We have some equipment, but they're basically creatures because they come with those creatures. So I think we need to take Mesmerizing Dose here and actually have some kind of removal. Pretty mediocre removal because it is aura based, so if your opponent has removal for enchantments, or if they can return their creature to their hand, they can get the Mesmerizing Dose off of their creature and save it. That being said, with 0 non-creature spells right now, we really need to prioritize the decent ones when they show up. So we'll take Mesmerizing Dose here. Incisor Glider would be a solid 2-drop for the deck. We're never going to corrupt our opponent, but a 2-mana 1/3 flying artifact creature, still good in this deck. And there's also the Goldwarn's Helm. So those are other good options, but again, with 0 non-creatures, just time to take our first Mesmerizing Dose. And pack 2, pick 6 is a really lucky pickup. Again, we're super low on non-creatures, so we need to start picking up some good ones. We will easily take Ossification. This is incredibly late for this card. I don't think I've ever seen this card this late in a human draft, so huge thanks to the bots for that. This is a 2-mana removal spell that can exile any creature or planeswalker until your opponent can potentially deal with Ossification, although that doesn't happen very often, so Ossification is excellent and definitely the pick. If it weren't in the pack though, Surgical Skull Bomb is actually quite a solid non-creature spell in this archetype because it triggers our cards that care about artifacts entering the battlefield. It can get animated by Unctus's Retrofitter, and it's just a decent little sorcery speed trick there, nice little tempo play. Bounce your opponent's creature to their hand and draw a card, so Skull Bomb's good too, but Ossification is excellent. For pack 2, pick 7, I'm the most interested in taking a second Indoctrination Attendant. This primarily, again, works with our 4 Mirrodin equipment like Goldwarden's Helm, but we have 2 other synergies for it now. It works with Mesmerizing Dose if they play a better creature later, and it works with Ossification if they play a better creature later, or if we end up ossifying a creature token. So if our opponent plays Viral Spawning that makes a 3/3 beast, or our opponent plays a 4 Mirrodin equipment that makes a 2/2 rebel, we can exile that card with this, and then pick up the Ossification, and they won't get the token back, and then still ossify something else later. So it's a really ridiculous, really stupid combo where you just get to turn 2 things to stone with 1 card. Pack 2, pick 8. The Arena Gods have shined down on us today, and we've gotten a second copy of Unctus's Retrofitter. The best card for this archetype. Slam dunk, take that card, shove it in the deck, and move on to the next pack. Pack 2, pick 9, we get that pick between Chrome Prowler and Indoctrination Attendant again, and I think I'll go for my 3rd Indoctrination Attendant. I just think our deck has a lot of pretty decent synergies for the card, and I would probably be willing to play like 3 of these over more copies of like Transplant Theorist. And I think we can run like 4 4-mana cards maximum here, so we do have room for this, whereas at 3 mana, gonna be really hard to fit another Chrome Prowler in, because now we have Skitterfang, 2 Retrofitter, 2 Chrome Prowler, and Goldwarden's Helm. That's 6 3-mana cards already, and I feel like we tend to see them more often in the draft if we find more later. We're just pretty likely to really jam-pack that 3-mana slot, so take another Indoctrination Attendant here. There's nothing I'm going to play in this pack, but just to say that I could, we'll take the Tamiyo's Logbook and be like, that's how open the Blue-Eyed Artifacts archetype is. We got the draw card, the card draw payoff for the archetype. Very likely to be one of our first cuts, but we'll still take it here for value. We did wheel one of these Mirren Bardishas, which is perfect. Slap this into the deck, end up cutting our Meldweb Strider. This makes our Indoctrination Attendants better, and this is a good way to buff up our smaller creatures late game to make sure they still matter. So pretty happy with Bardiche. Well, this deck's definitely not going to play a Gataxian Raptor, so I guess we'll just take a second Bardiche. Not that likely to run both, but possible. We can easily just cut the Meldweb Strider now. I think it's pretty much impossible we're going to end up playing Raptor, again, because we just have so much stuff at 3 mana. Card is fine, though, if we get enough equipment, but we'll just go Bardiche. Pick 13, we have Minor Misstep, which is just unplayable and limited versus Surgical Bay, so we'll grab a Surgical Bay, have a tap land in the deck. Now, Anatomist is going to immediately get cut. Pack 3, pick 1 is going to be a little weird here. I don't think Skrelv's Hive is actually that great if you can't consistently trigger Toxic, And it's going to be pretty hard to do that with our deck. It's one of our only toxic creatures. We do have 2 retrofitters that are toxic, 3 attendants that are toxic, but they're kind of slow, like 3-4 mana toxic stuff. That being said, if we take this Skrelv's Hive, we could end up wheeling the Crawling Chorus, and we could play every toxic creature that we've drafted here to try to get it to potentially work out. We do have a Dune Mover as well. We have some amount of toxic. It's a pretty risky card, but there's nothing else in the pack that we'll probably end up playing, because again, it's like a 3rd copy of Bardiche or a 3rd copy of Prowler. We would play a 2nd Chorus. That's the main thing I think we should probably take over it, but Skrelv's Hive is just kind of cooler, so I think we'll try to do Skrelv's Hive things. The Veil of Assimilation is one of these kind of signpost uncommons that really pushes you into the artifact deck, and it's very clear where it's supposed to go, much like Tamio's Logbook, but it doesn't really impact the board enough to be worth it, and it's played pretty bad in the format, so I tend to ignore it again, even if I am in the dedicated archetype it's supposed to go in. So take the Skrelv's Hive here. If we're super lucky, we wheel the Crawling Chorus and take that as well. Pack 3 pick 2 is a little bit unfortunate because there's nothing we're going to play. Again, we're not going to play the first Logbook, so we definitely won't play the second. Prologue to Phyrexia doesn't really do anything in the deck. Complete Devotion could be okay if we end up in the super toxic strategy for Skrelv's Hive, so we could take that here. But if this was your personal draft, I think the odds of running Complete Devotion are low enough that you can just rare draft your dual land if you want it. We'll take Complete Devotion though. Pack 3 pick 3 is another pack with nothing really for our deck. We'll just take the Gataxian Raptor. It's the most likely card to get played, even if it isn't that likely. Pack 3 pick 4, our deck is still pretty massively skewed towards creature spells over non-creature spells, so we'll take the Surgical Skull Bomb over the Gold Warden's Helm. Not too much else going on in the pack. Pack 3 pick 5, we get another solid non-creature spell, Serum Snares, just decent instant speed interaction, so we'll put that in the deck. Pack 3 pick 6 is actually incredibly difficult. I don't think I'll play Vanish into Eternity, even though I'm pretty low on non-creatures. Most of the time this is just 6 mana to get rid of a creature. What's really competing here are 2 premium 2 mana cards for the deck. We have Mandible Justiciar and Malcator's Watcher. The Justiciar is better in almost all positions. The only time that Malcator's Watcher is better is when we have Unctus's Retrofitter in hand to be able to turn it into that 4/4 Flying Vigilance. Then it's absolutely absurd. But generally Justiciar is better, and even if we have a Justiciar instead of a Malcator's Watcher, like a 4/4 lifelink with this ability still probably wins us the game pretty quickly. So really, it's not that much of a downside to have a Justiciar on board instead of a Malcator's Watcher. So I think I'm going to go with another Justiciar, because again, better whenever we don't have the Unctus's Retrofitter, and not an insane amount worse when we do. So we'll take Justiciar here. Pack 3 pick 7 now has nothing I'm going to play, so I'll just rare draft this piece of nonsense. We just have too many 3-drops and stuff, we're not going to want another Helm. Pack 3 pick 8, pretty big payoff, we get an Eye of Malcator here. That being said, it is competing with a Flensing Raptor if I wanted to push into that toxic strategy, so now's a decent time to take another look at the deck, see how close we could get to being toxic heavy enough for Skrelv's Hive. So here's a look at the deck with all the toxic cards set apart. We have 1 1-drop with toxic, the Skrelv's Hive, and then 1 2-drop with toxic, 2 3-drops with toxic, 3 4-drops with toxic, and 1 Shepherd at the end of the game. Feels like it's going to be kind of difficult to trigger that Corrupted pretty consistently, so I should probably just zero in on being super just artifact aggro-centric. Probably end up cutting Dune Mover, running Eye of Malcator here, instead of keeping all that in and running Flensing Raptor. Yeah, we're probably going to cut Dune Mover and Hive and put in the Eye of Malcator. Not much going on pack 3 pick 9. We have a Bardiche, a Prowler, a Veil of Assimilation, or the Fair Basilica. I feel like almost any of these non-lands are competing with a ton of other cards and it'll probably just get cut, so we'll just take 1 white tap land, run 1 of each in here. Pack 3 pick 10, might as well take another Logbook, I guess. More stuff that we won't play. Wow, we really could have been red-white Chimney Rabbles and Furnace Striders everywhere. but we're not going to play any of this. We'll just take random Sinew Dancer. More stuff we won't play. I'll take a second. Well, I'll take a second Bay, but I'm only going to run one. Take a Curator. Take a Hazardous Blast, last pick. And we'll go ahead and build this deck. So here's a look at the deck with all of the cards I'm going to cut dragged to the side. We're basically just cutting cards that are kind of slow for the format and are just not very synergistic. Like Raptor doesn't really do anything with our deck, whereas every single other 3-mana creature does. We have artifact creatures like Chrome Prowlers and Skitterfangs, Gold Warden's Helm, Eye of Malcator, and then the 2 retrofitters that turn artifacts into 4/4s, whereas Raptor's just kind of sitting here being a flyer. It's like good with the Bardiche, but that's about it. So not super exciting in our archetype. Glistener Seer is getting cut to make our tap lands a little more playable. Now we'll only have 2 1-mana cards, so if we do draw a tap land in our opening hand, hopefully we just draw it in our opening hand when we don't hit our Crawling Chorus or Skull Bomb, and it should be pretty decent there. We're dropping Complete Devotion because we don't have that many toxic cards. This would still be a fine combat trick. Again, we still have 5 or 6, but it wouldn't be excellent. Logbook, again, just too slow for the format. Meldweb Strider we're dropping for, again, just too slow, just kind of 5-mana card. And we did drop one of our Bardiches as well. And since we are cutting a lot of the slower cards like Logbook and Strider, we've also cut a land to drop down to 16 here to have a nice slow, well, a nice fast curve. And we are keeping Dune Mover in here as well to make it a little easier to drop down to those 16 lands, because anytime we have Dune Mover on turn 2, we'll guarantee that we hit our 3rd land drop as well. So Dune Mover, even though we don't really care about the toxic, still going to be pretty fine in the deck. So those are the cuts that we're going with. Let's get into the deck overview. So here's a look at the completed deck we'll be playing today. This is a blue-white artifact aggro deck. The name of the game here, the biggest goal, is to drop any of these 2-mana artifact creatures and then turn them into a 4/4 on turn 3 with Unctus's Retrofitter. That is the easiest way for this archetype to win some games. Just steal some games from your opponent with really ridiculously large creatures attacking them on turn 3. That is the biggest game plan, that is the easiest way to win games, but you're not always going to draw the Retrofitter on turn 3, so we also just have generally good blue-white artifact aggro stuff. Cards like the Justiciar can hit very hard and gain you a bunch of life just while you're playing your next artifact creatures. We have some cards that are really nice later in the game, like Transplant Theorist, to let us dig through any mana flood to find more cards to pressure our opponent. Cards like Skitterfang can keep sending our biggest threat into the sky every combat to make sure that we're getting some damage in. Got really nice combat tricky cards like Chrome Prowler. Chrome Prowler particularly good with cards like Justiciar and Eye of Malcator that trigger when an artifact hits your board, because then your opponent can't expect you to be playing an artifact at instant speed too often. Some pretty solid removal between Ossification and Mesmerizing Dose, with some other interaction to bounce things to hand like Serum Snare and Skull Bomb. So yeah, name of the game is trying to get that Retrofitter off turn 3, but when we don't, we have plenty of other artifact aggro synergies to try to beat our opponents down with. So without further ado, let's head into the gameplay. Here we are on the play for game 1. We can go Chorus turn 1, Justiciar turn 2. If we hit any land, we have Skitterfang on 3. Only card we can't play is Experiment, so I'm actually going to keep this opener, even though it is kind of risky. If we don't hit a blue source within 4 or 5 draw steps, we could have some pretty big issues. And there you go, there's the Surgical Bay, but here's what I was talking about with that card, where we do get punished for running a tap land here. It's really awkward to play it this turn, super awkward to play it turn 3 as well. I think I'd still rather play it turn 3, get our Justiciar down. Technically should have waited to play this until post-combat. There is a 1-mana black instant that gives something -1/-1. We could have given them an opportunity to kill the Chorus with that before we put this on the board. This time I should play this pre-combat because it will trigger the other Justiciar to give it an additional power and toughness this turn on the attack. Could be the counterspell here. No, it's going to be Anoint. Stop our Justiciar damage. So one more Chorus damage, get in there, and we drop the Surgical Bay. Justiciar was an excellent draw there, allowing us to get our tap land out of the way, and still play a card that turn. Chittering Skitterling from our opponent. A 1/4 is actually quite the annoying blocker. Well, we're just going to have to drop our Skitterfang now. So we can start giving the Justiciar flying every turn and still getting in. And if I manage to play 2 artifacts in 1 turn, this will be 4 power, and then I can give a different creature flying that turn, or just save the oil counter for later. Ooh, Serum Snare? That's very nice here. That's able to put their Skitterling back in their hand and proliferate another oil onto Skitterfang. Seems fine. I don't think I need to do that yet. I kind of want to do that once Skitterfang's lower on oil, and for now we just keep curving out with artifacts. Experiment's actually pretty solid on this board as well, but because I have the Serum Snare to put the Skitterling back in the hand, I'm going to go for the Helm instead to make the most of my mana. If I didn't have Snare, Experiment would be better, so I can just start making the Skitterling have 0 power every turn. Use a Chrome Prowler, tap down our Justiciar. Not a fan of that. So we lose the oil counter for nothing this turn. Yeah, it's already been removed, so we have to click something here. We'll double lifelink for fun. Alright. So we can get through the Chrome Prowler. That only has 2 toughness. We can attack into that without getting flying. So still on the Serum Snare Skitterling plan. Necrosquito is the play, a 2/2 flyer. Keeps getting bigger as their creatures die, which is a little spooky. Can't attack or block well right now, as just a 2/2. So I think I'm just going to let it hang out here. We're going to drop Experiment to trigger Justiciar. And we're going to Serum Snare the Skitterling. Although, I mean, I don't really need to snare the Skitterling. I just need to not attack with Chorus. Now that they have a Prowler as well, Chorus can't attack into Prowler either anyway. I probably do just attack in with my 3/2 and my 2/3 here and save the counter on Skitterfang. Hold up Serum Snare to play during their end step, I suppose. We can decide on it later. Would love to have my Rebel token trade off with something, but they're just going to go for Chrome Prowler on Justiciar. That is fine. We'll take the trade. Necrosquito will get larger. We can put the Necrosquito back in their hand, and then when they replay it, it'll only have 2 oil, but we won't get to proliferate if we do that, since this card only proliferates on mana value 3 or less. Well, now it's going to be worth it to snare the Necrosquito. That'll stop them from poisoning us, and it will kill their aura and a mosquito at the same time. We find out if they have the combat trick here, or not the combat trick, the counterspell here. If they have the counterspell, they could have countered our Serum Snare at either time. They do not have the counterspell, and that's going to be brutal for our opponent. They lose their aura forever, don't have the mana to replay Necrosquito this turn, and when they do replay it, it won't have as many counters on it. A Attendant here. No reason to pre-combat it, now that we don't have Justiciar anymore. We can attack with Experiment, make it so Rat doesn't have any power. They can't kill Skitterfang anymore that way. But then they can just put Skitterling on Experiment. It's not ideal. I actually might just put the Helm on Experiment then, but then I'm not playing Attendant this turn, which doesn't feel right. I think I have to play Attendant this turn. Yeah, we might have to just offer Experiment for Rat here and shut off Skitterling instead. Or I could have Skitterfang jump it into the sky. Can it jump itself into the sky? It can put itself in the sky. You know what? I'm just going to put the Skitterfang itself into the sky here. And I could pick up the Skitterfang with the Attendant if I want. And we shut off the Skitterling here, so all they can do is trade with something with the Rat. Cool. This is fine. better to get more Skitterfang counters or get another Rebel token here with our Attendant? Not entirely sure. Probably actually better to get the Skitterfang counters. Another 2-3 Rebel is still going to keep just bouncing into Skitterling. But if we can give Attendant flying, the Necrosquito can't block it right now. Surgical Skull Bomb, that's going to be pretty good against our Rebel token, but there's another Attendant. It's pretty nasty. Pretty nasty. Use that to pick up the Helm. There's a cute little combo where we could just play Attendant to pick up Attendant and keep doing that every turn. That's a really slow way to play this game, though. I'm not going to be pressuring our opponent very much. Yeah, I would rather play the Skitterfang here. Get the Attendant into the sky. They could double block and kill the Rebel, but I kill Necrosquito if they do. I mean, I guess they can just bounce off Skitterling and nothing happens, but we're at 26. I don't really think we need to be blocking anyway, so I'll give them that option if they want to trade Necrosquito off. Alright, they do not, so they're going to go to 8, and they are at 3 poison. Bone Picker Scourge is the play. We have 0 poison counters on us, so that's just a 2-2 flyer. If they get 3 onto us, then that will be a Death-Touching Lifelinker. Ooh. Retrofitter's pretty big here. Got 2 flyers now. They've got 4 power and toughness flying. If I Retrofitter this Might, they can bounce the Might with Skull Bomb, which is pretty bad. Could Retrofitter the Gold Warden's Helm. Don't really want to do it on the Skitterfang. I don't want to be sending that into the combat. Although if I do it on Skitterfang, got a 4-4 flyer and I move the Helm over, make it a 4-5 flyer, they can't block well. It does seem better. I have exactly enough mana to do that. Yeah, putting Skitterfang in harm's way here, if they have some kind of trick. Which they have something at instant speed, but it could just be their Skull Bomb ability. Alright, hopefully this is good enough. Could just give it Death Touch, then they could like triple block to kill it, but otherwise just boom, kill a bunch of creatures. Is that better than flying? I feel like flying is still just better, though. Send in the squad. They can double block Attendant, but I kill the Necrosquito if they do. Fine trade to me. Chump block Skitterfang and bounce off of our Attendant. Take 2 damage. They are down to 6. Necrosquito is leveling up to 3-3 status. Ooh, Necrosquito triggers off of artifacts as well. That's pretty nice with the Skull Bomb. It is now a 4-4 flyer. Necrosquito's out here just consuming trinkets willy-nilly. It will eat your flesh and your jewelry, apparently. Alright, we have a Mandible Justiciar and an Attendant to choose from. Our opponent's at 6 life with 3 blockers. Almost feels like I just attack with everybody. They can block there, block there, block there, take 4. It's not going to be lethal, but still going to be good. I feel like I just Death Touch Skitterfang now, trade into 2 creatures. They have to double block. Can't really get in with Attendant against the Necrosquito anymore. Yeah, let's Death Touch Skitterfang. Send just that in now that they have a 4-4. And then we can pick it up with Attendant to get the counters back. Won't have a 4-4 anymore because Retrofitter's ability will stop working on it. But we would have those counters, which are pretty important on this board state. Block with Necrosquito. They have the Death Touch Indestructible trick? No, they have Whisper of the Dross to Proliferate. Alright, well that's not great for us. We'll still trade into Necrosquito, so we still get that out of the way. So we're still fine. Definitely was a good idea to choose Death Touch here. And now our plan is just to be attacking with absolutely everybody else. Yeah, let's get a wide board state so that they definitely die. We'll play Attendant and actually just pick up a land so that I can play Justiciar this turn as well. Less value in the long run, but it just lets me really dump a bunch of creatures on the board to just click the all attack button next turn and definitely find lethal. And our opponent is going to scoop them up, and we'll start out 1-0. Very nice game there. We really got to show off pretty much every synergy in the deck. Skitterfang with the Indoctrination Attendants was great. Really got to show off the Attendants doing their work, the Justiciar doing work, and the Retrofitter doing work, and those are all some of the key pieces. So great stuff as we head into round 2. Here we are in round 2. Our opponent is on the play, so we're on the draw. I will keep this hand on the draw, a little risky on the play. 2-lander with just 1 2-mana card, 2 5s and a 4. But on the draw, like as soon as we hit 1 land, we're doing really good things with Experiment into Retrofitter. And if I just hit 1 land and a bunch of spells, the odds of those spells being 3 mana or less are pretty dang high with the average mana cost in our deck. And obviously any spells that cost 3 or less after we hit just 1 land are super castable. Our opponent has one of the best turn 1 plays in the format, Evolving Adaptive into Exuberant Fuseling, another one of the best turn 1 plays in the format. Both of these cards get bigger and bigger the more oil counters get on them. The Adaptive gets more oil more easily, just by playing more creatures, whereas the Fuseling gets them when their creatures and artifacts die. Urabrask's Forge. We might just be moving on to game 3 here, because this curve is nutter butters. Evolving Adaptive into Fuseling into the Forge. The Forge, of course, giving them an X1 with Trample and Haste every turn, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Luckily for us, we do have a Retrofitter with our Justiciar, so we'll have a big lifelinker here. And our opponent also didn't go for an attack there. That 1-1 definitely should have at least attacked. Because if I blocked, I would have lost Justiciar to a creature that was dying in their end step anyway. But yeah, Fuseling with Forge is insane, because every time one of those things leaves the battlefield, the Fuseling gets bigger. Every time one of those hits the board, the Adaptive gets bigger now, because the next one's going to be a 2-1. So these two into the Forge is just nuts. With the Cackler as well, this 3-mana card is going to attack at 5 power now, because they have 3 permanents with oil counters. This is a legitimately insane curve, but this is very much the kind of thing you're going to see a lot in Phyrexia All Will Be One Limited, and why it is such an aggressive format where you need so many early game plays. Okay, we have the mana now to play our Escaped Experiment and Serum Snare, which I think is the line. If they go for a block, we can punish them with Serum Snare, and if they don't go for a block, we can Serum Snare the Forge back into their hand. I'm not sure how this interaction works, and I might lose the game for not knowing how it works, but I think if this trigger goes on the stack, and I respond by putting it back in their hand, it's like treated like this has 0 oil counters on it, so it doesn't give them any creature. We'll find out right now for science, at the very least. Uh-oh. They have a hexproof trick? Okay, they do not. They still get a 2-1, so it just goes with the last. That's so weird. It says put an oil counter on it, then create one where X is equal to the oils. By the time they would have quote-unquote put an oil counter on it, it would have had 0 because it's gone by then. But it goes with the amount it had before it attempted to put an oil? Okay. Alright, well, not in love with that, but that is how Magic works. My opponent has a combat trick here that's going to be pretty bad for me. Most of the combat tricks would be 2 mana or less. I feel like if they don't have a combat trick, though, I do need to try to kill this Adaptive. So we'll put the Experiments on it, not the Retrofitter. This is worse if they don't have a combat trick, but way better if they do. They have a Hexgold. Whoa! I'm actually incredibly happy with that. So with Hexgold Slash... Oh, they're holding up their 4 mana and passing the turn? some kind of instant here. So with Hexcold Slash, because it can deal 4 to a toxic creature, the Retrofitter actually is a toxic creature. So Retrofitter would die to the Slash, so we're pretty happy we got the Experiment killed instead of the Retrofitter there. Go ahead and play the Transplant Theorist pre-combat. Actually should have kept that land in hand here, so I could discard that to the Theorist. In case I hit a Plains. Plains is the only card I would want to keep over that. Okay, yeah, we're good, because we didn't hit a Plains, didn't get punished. Never punished. We can get rid of Basilica Shepherd then, since we need double white for it, but Shepherd is really good if Justiciar stays, although it's likely to trade off here, or die to whatever their instant is. I feel like Chrome Prowler's really nice, though. When our opponent's at 11, we're trying to outrace them, and Bardiche is definitely castable, so yeah, I'll get rid of Shepherd. We cannot guarantee we have the lands for it, with our need for an additional white mana. So on board, they have to double block to kill Justiciar, but we don't know what's in their hand. They might have just clicked too many times and skipped over main phase 2 without replaying the Forge. Probably not. Probably something? Well, not yet. Hit them for 5, gain 5. Alright, I guess they just clicked too many times. Unfortunate one for our opponent there. And we might actually find the win through the Urbrask's Forge here. Could be super nice. This Fuseling is still going to be absolutely massive, but I can tap it down with Prowler now so that it can't block, and that'll make Justiciar a 5 power attacker, which means they don't have enough power to kill it. I could even play... Ooh, yeah, I could even play Dune Mover and then hold Chrome Prowler as a trick. So if they block Justiciar with Fuseling, then I can... I'll discard Eye of Malcator, I think. If they block with Fuseling, I can play Chrome Prowler at instant speed and kill Fuseling with my 6/6. And if they don't block the Justiciar, I just kill them out of nowhere. Yeah, we're at 31, so we might as well send a Theorist in as well. They can kill that by trading Fuseling into it or double blocking with Cackler and Adaptive, where I can just kill the Adaptive. Okay, they're not going to block with Fuseling. Well then, I think I just keep Chrome Prowler and play it during their turn to tap down the Fuseling. Well, they do have a trick. And that's +4/+4 to Adaptive, so that makes it big enough to kill Justiciar. That's pretty rough. I can play the Chrome Prowler at least, so we still kill the Adaptive here. But that did not work out particularly well, although that would have happened to us even if we played Chrome Prowler earlier. I'm actually going to keep another Chrome Prowler over Bardiche to help find lethal. Because they only have 2 creatures that can possibly block, and I can tap 1 down, which will guarantee 6 damage. Not against Incubation Sac. Not against Incubation Sac. Now they have 3 blockers. They have 0 cards in hand, so this block is free. Okay, so I can Chrome Prowler down the 7/1, but they won't die because I only have 4 attackers against 2 blockers. Only 2 creatures get in, which is a maximum of 4 damage. I guess a maximum of 5, but it'll probably just be 4. I should play Prowler right now in case I draw something good off Theorist that could kill them. We tap down Fuseling, I think. Could potentially be better to actually... I should have tapped a white there so that I could use Surgical Bay after this. Yeah, that's awkward because I do want the second white in case I draw another card and now I can't sack Surgical Bay. Anyways, it might have been better to tap one of these down because Fuseling has to trade with whatever it blocks. That way we can definitely clear out something on their board with an all attack, but instead I think I'm just sending in Prowler because it's the only thing that trades off into 1 creature. Get something out of the way. 6 life here. Kill 1, then they have 3 blockers against 4 creatures. Oh, we're just really not getting anywhere. unfortunately, doing this. Just hold back then? Then I'll have 5 against 4. Yeah, either way it's going to end in the same number because of this incubation sac. Yeah, the tapping for Chrome Prowler was a pretty big punt there. Wow, and it's going to let our opponent get some more turns here to really try to turn things around. That Skitterfang can do a lot of things here. Can send the Fuseling into the sky to put a lot of pressure on our life total. Could give it lifelink to just give them a lot of breathing room. See what they do here. They're targeting the 3-1. Yep, and giving it lifelink to get some breathing room here. Go back up to 9. Yeah, Skitterfang off the top is pretty horrendous for us. Again, on the third Skitterfang, they can just give the Fuseling lifelink and gain like 10 while they trample over for some damage there. So, yeah, we need stuff here at this point. It's going to be our most impactful card late game. Probably Shepherd. Put that on bottom. Ooh, Retrofitter is not bad. Really looking to hit a flyer, though. I don't have any cheap double white cards, so we can do this. Let's see what we hit. Well, not the worst land we could draw. Alright, make our weakest artifact creature a 4/4 now. But best it does is still just trade into a 3/3, because they double block with a 3/3 and a 2/3. Could send in the 4/4 and both of my 3/2s. Those all, at worst, trade into one of their cards and whittle down the board a bit. Yeah, that did make my board state significantly better. First, Retrofitter does not attack in well because they can just kill it with the 3/3 without losing a creature. Theorist they could kill without losing a creature if they double block with 2/3 and 3/3, but then they don't really have blocks elsewhere. But that would still be a pretty good block. If we send in Theorist and then they double block here, put a Fuseling here, just take 6, like they'd be pretty good. Because then they just Skitterfang, Lifelink, Fuseling, they'd still be fine. Yeah, I don't think I attack with anything else. I think I send these in and whittle down the board a bit. Alright, we are going to get the Fuseling off board, which is good. Yeah, everything but Skitterfang. They're just going to keep using Skitterfang Lifelink here. Alright, yeah, Retrofitter, pretty great draw there. Turning our 2/1 into a 4/4 gives us much more reasonable attacks. There is a Volt Charge to clear out a Retrofitter and put more oil on all of their permanents. The Forge now producing 5 power creatures, so we don't have blocks, and that is going to be a 10 life point swing with Skitterfang. We get hit for 5 and they gain 5. Crawling Chorus is the draw. That is a chump blocker, but their things have trample, so it doesn't really matter. So draw another card with Fair Basilica. Surgical Skull Bomb. Only bounces creatures. Probably going to be best on a future turn to just bounce our own Retrofitter. Not doing anything with it right now. I guess we could bounce their Golem token. That'd be fine. I'm going to play it here, draw a card, discard a card first to see if we draw something better than Chorus. Justiciar, is that better than Chorus? Probably. Yeah. Okay, we do have attacks here. Because we're not going to be doing any blocking against a 6/1 trample that dies in the end step. Drop a Justiciar. We will not draw a card and discard a card with an empty hand. Sky Scythe Engulfer. Might have to just bounce that so I can attack again here, but they're going to be at 16 now. This is a wild game. All in all, We've made it real far after the just premium start they had here. So we're doing things. Ooh, Malcator's Watcher. Not actually that excited about playing this and bouncing our own Retrofitter, because even if we make this a 4/4 Flying Vigilance, they can just block with Engulfer. Like, I think we just need to bounce Engulfer, so that we can actually attack again this turn at least. Eventually run them out of lifelink tricks with Skitterfang. We'll see what we draw first, but we are going to bounce Engulfer. Draw an Indoctrination Attendant. Well, that lets me pick up Retrofitter, and then put Retrofitter on Watcher or Justiciar. Okay, we play Watcher pre-combat, so Justiciar gains life if it trades into Skitterfang. Well, gains 1 more life, and does 1 more damage if it doesn't. Is there anything in our deck that's a better draw than Attendant? If there is, we should draw discard. There's our own Skitterfang, and an Ossification. Not particularly, but I'm still going to do it. Just get rid of this land. Send in the squad. They're going to take it all down to 9. They will go back up to 7 more life, back up to 16. Spore Singer is the play to proliferate on all their stuff again, so that Skitterfang has 2 counters again, so they'll gain up to 16, or gain up to 17 because they proliferated here, and then they'll gain another 9 next turn. Oh, we are getting forged hard. I do have Ossification. Oh, that's not artifacts. It's creatures or planeswalkers, I think. Yeah, creatures or planeswalkers. Dang. I was like, maybe Ossification's our best draw, because that could maybe deal with the Forge, but it can't actually do that. Well, at least we get another attack in here. We'll play Attendants. Actually, I just want to pick up Retrofitter with Attendant anyway, so I might as well just attack with everybody and then pick up the Retrofitter post-combat. I'm just going to send it in here. Yeah, I don't have the mana to immediately replay Retrofitter, so we just do it post-combat. Actually, more damage that way. Okay, they'll take all the damage. Pick up the Retrofitter, draw a card, discard a card. Because we're making a Might token. Another land for us. I do still want more lands. I'll play this even though I have Theorist. We've had turns where we're trying to play 2 things in 1 turn quite often. Mainly because our Attendants. Oh my god, now they Restoration back the Adaptive and Proliferate again for another counter on Skitterfang to just keep going. I mean, Ossification is still our best draw just because we can deal with the Skitterfang and they have no more life gain. If they didn't have this life gain, they would have died like 10 turns ago. So just dealing with Skitterfang is definitely an out, but we don't have much time left to do it. Because we're at 23 and Forge is starting to make 10 power creatures. And by the time we're that far deep, we probably want Bardiche. Put that on the bottom now. Take 11 damage from Forge next turn. They're going to gain 11 life. They have a 6/5 reach coming up, so even if I make this a 4/4, I'm not going to be able to get in forever, so I think I'm actually retrofitting the Justiciar. To gain more life. Back down to 10, they're going to go back up to 21. I think I'll actually keep the 7th land for Transplant Theorist. And there we go. They are finally out of oil counters on Skitterfang. It is extremely unlikely at this point, but this is where we can potentially actually get some damage in here. Down to 6 we go. Next turn we're just dead, most likely. Again, this thing has trample, so all we can do is stop 3 or 4. I don't think it really matters. We're not going to get to the bottom of the deck at this rate. Justiciar is the play. We can draw and discard a card by playing it. That'll buff our Justiciar to 5/5 to gain 5 life. Yeah, and the Forge is going to be at maximum 12. So we'll be able to survive another hit, at least one hit, because we're going to gain 5 life here. Oh my god, Indoctrination Attendant is a legit draw too. We can play that. I probably want to play it post-combat because they might actually trade into our Justiciar, at which case we would want to play Attendant to pick up a Retrofitter to recast it on our other Justiciar. If I play it pre-combat, I do put another artifact on the board and gain 6 instead of 5, but I feel like this Justiciar is probably going to die during combat here. And even if it doesn't die during combat, it's nice to stay flexible for just 1 less damage here. Yeah. Nothing else can attack against their current board, so just Justiciar. They are going to trade Engulfer into it, which is pretty big for me. Then I can start getting Malcator's Watcher attacks in. I probably can't survive more than 1 more attack, so I don't know how much that matters. But that is a thing. They have no flying blockers anymore. Now we play the Attendant and pick up the Retrofitter. Okay, do I want to mill one here? Is there anything better to draw than Retrofitter? At this point, Skitterfang's out of counters, so Ossification isn't even good anymore. I did just put Serum Snare on bottom, but I'm still 12 cards away from that. To bounce Forge again. We can bounce Forge again, we can stop it from mattering. I guess maybe if I had put Serum Snare on the bottom first, like we could maybe try to get there. Oh, we're still pretty far. But it's kind of impossible to get there right now. So what can I hit in my deck again? Ossification, Helm, Dose. Skitterfang, Attendant. I don't think there's anything better to hit right now. Okay, they make a Golem. They're going to attack with a 12/1 that does not have lifelink. Well, we have to stop at least 2 points of this damage. Stop 4 of it with this Attendant. We are down to 3, and it's tremendously unlikely we survive another attack. Can't play an artifact here to draw and discard another card, unfortunately. Play Retrofitter on Justiciar, gain 4, be at 7 life against a 13 power Trampler. Also, 4/4 Justiciar doesn't get in anymore because Adaptive has gotten so big because of the Forge. I think we're at the end of the road here, kids. Sad ending after such a long battle, but I don't think we can go on any longer. (13) power, we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 toughness. We do get 1 more turn if they only attack with the Forge here. But we don't have any draws that get us out of this. We don't have anything quite as balmy as Urabrask's Forge. Okay. 13 life. Take 9. Take 5. Take 1 and draw a card. Is that our best bet? I don't think we really just have... I don't think we have a best bet here. It's just... We'll just do this because it survives and then we can send a message by hitting them one last time. It's 9 toughness, so we get trampled over for 4, but we gain 2 from the lifelink at the same time, so we technically end up at 1 life. And then hit them with the Watcher and then die next turn. Your monumentally late ossification. Gitterfang has already done probably at least 50 points of lifelink this game. Alright, that is gonna end game number 2. Settle the wreckage? No. Here we are in game number 3. Hand's pretty unkeepable. It needs a blue source very badly with basically 3 blue cards in it and just 3 white sources, so that's just a mulligan. This hand has a fine start to the game. It will run out of gas pretty quickly, but we have 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop to get things rolling. So we will definitely keep this hand. Also has both colors. So turn 1 Crawling Chorus and see where things go from here. Ooh, Justicia turn 2 against the empty board. Probably a little better. If our opponent plays like a Vorak on turn 3 or something, this is still the better play. Because we could even Chrome Prowler, tap their creature down, gain a bunch of life. Yeah, and if they don't play a creature, I think I just play Malcator's Watcher. Save the Prowler for later. Save the Prowler for next turn. Although if I Prowler during their end step, I do hit a lot harder next turn. Let's actually do that. Just send this in for 3. And then they play their creature on turn 4 and we tap it down in their end step. And then hit them for 6. Well, 7 if we play another artifact. Jawbone Duelist. 1/1 Toxic. Double Strike. Okay, tap that down. Save our dose for a better creature later. Ooh, Serum Snare as well. I think I'm just playing Malcator's Watcher here. Snare during end step would still be fine though. We hit for 6, then bounce their play. Let's actually do that. Well, I still have the dose, so I could play Watcher instead and then dose their play and then bounce whatever after that. I don't know. Either or is pretty great here. I'll go for the Serum Snare though. Since I already passed to main phase 2, if I play Watcher post-combat, I'm losing some Justiciar value. Oh my god. Well, pretty glad I went for the Serum Snare here, because that's just what I would do during my turn. If I Mesmerizing Dose this Masticore, its ability allows them to discard a card that costs 3 or more to just blow up my dose, and then they still have Masticore. So, we'll dose it next turn, because it'll stay tapped for 1 turn, even if they blow up the dose. But for now, I'm more than happy to snare that. And just leaving up snare ended up playing really well. Okay, now I have no instance to hold up, so we just play the Watcher and then we dose that next turn and find lethal. That's the plan. They're down to 3. They tap out for a 5-drop, we tap it down and kill them on board. That is our game plan. If they have multiple 2 or 3 mana creatures, they could go for a much safer play and play 2 smaller cards this turn instead. If they do that, we'll just keep chipping in with the Flyer for 1 damage each turn. Ossification. Going to exile our Chrome Prowler. Another Ossification is going to exile our Malcator's Watcher. If they don't have a trick, they are still dead on board to Mesmerizing Dose here, but then I won't have anything to kill the Masticore if they do have a trick. The Hexproof trick, I play around that by playing Theorist. That makes Justiciar 3 power, so they have to block Justiciar and let Chorus in. Where they trade Duelist into Justiciar, I have 2 creatures left on board, and then I just dose Masticore next turn. I could just dose the Duelist here, but I'm going to play it like super safe and go for Theorist. Force the Justiciar Duelist trade. Oh, now we have now we're just golden. Gonna ossify the Masticore. So again, this is quote-unquote mist lethal, but it's against 2 open mana when there's a hexproof trick in the set. That would hit us really, really hard if I tried to dose there. Alright, Masticore, 1 mana up, 2 mana up. They have a 3rd ossification? Basically. Good lord. I feel like ossification's better than Chrome Prowler here. Although, well, Chrome Prowler comes out at instant speed and like surprises them. They can't play any sorcery speed removal on it, and then it'll definitely kill them if we ossify after the Chrome Prowler. I don't even need to because I can just tap the Masticore. Yeah, we'll pass. We'll actually pass and just Chrome Prowler during the end step, tapping Masticore. See what their last card in hand was. Oh, it was a hexproof trick. They didn't have the mana up for it though. It was 3 mana, not 2 mana. The hexproof trick I was thinking of was the uncommon. That's a 1 green mana instant. They could have afforded that one. That's hilarious that it was a hexproof trick, but it was the wrong one, so we could have had lethal. But that is a-okay, we still have lethal here. Unless this final card is an instant speed removal spell. Oh wow, they're sending in the Masticore? Well then I guess I don't need to tap that. They play a creature post-combat, I just tap that creature. They did not play a creature post-combat. Alright, they're going to scoop them up. The Flash Prowler going to find the last 3 points of damage. We're now going to be 2-1 heading into round number 4. Round number 4, the Dentist is back in business. Our Teethy Boy is coming out on turn 2, and we're just going to roll from there. We are on the draw as well, so we're pretty likely to find our 3rd land in time. We have 3 land drops to hit it. Another turn 1 Evolving Adaptive. You do hate to see it. Card is pretty ridiculous. Take 1 from Adaptive. They don't have a follow-up play on turn 2 at least. We'll definitely start with Justiciar. If I play any artifacts next turn, this is a 3-2 big enough to attack into their 1-1. But honestly, I would always attack into the Adaptive because it's so easy for that to get so much bigger later. So I'm always willing to trade our Justiciar into that. If we manage to hit our 3rd land and our opponent doesn't have like removal or instant speed interaction, we could have a pretty quick, pretty uninteractive game here. Because we could retrofit the Justiciar to start attacking with a 4-4, and even if they ever get enough blockers for it, we can then just play a Skitterfang afterwards. Keep attacking with a 4-4 flying lifelink. Pretty consistent way to win a game, so they don't have some cheap removal here. They're going to have some problems. That is if I hit my land drop, though, but this will be draw number 3 of 3. Feels pretty likely. Dang, punished for not playing Dune Mover instead of Justiciar. Justiciar's so much better, though, with the Retrofitter. Alright, well, we definitely play the Dune Mover now and put the island on top. Guarantee that card coming up. Justiciar for either of these is still fine. Yeah, it's okay if we just make a Dune Mover the 4-4. I think we can still outrace them. They are going to trade into the Raptor. 4 mana now for our opponent. Send an adaptive. This is definitely a combat trick, and I am not going to trade Dune Mover into a combat trick right now. We're about to follow up with a Retrofitter. Ichor Spit Basilisk. Well, shoot. Now I have to dose the Basilisk so that I can actually get in with a 4/4. Prowler's pretty fine here as well. Prowler's big enough to trade into either of their creatures at instant speed, where they might not expect it. And we can dose down the adaptive later, just use Prowler to kill Basilisk. I mean, it seemed like they had a trick though, so if I Prowler, they probably use a trick to kill the Prowler, but a trick killing Prowler is a lot better than trick killing the Dune Mover. Sure. Yeah, I think we just pass here and go for one of our Prowlers. Especially because we have 2 of them as well, which is nice. Got a backup. Contagious Vorak is the play. That's going to go ahead and grab them another land. Could Proliferate instead, just make the adaptive a 4/4 here. I would not be a fan of that. Yep, they're going to Proliferate here. And adaptive's a 4/4, which is getting really bad. We can just snare it though, set it back to 1. Fine idea. We could also dose it to kill it forever. Prowler tap adaptive does not feel bad here. We Prowler tap adaptive, then we snare it later. I'm just gonna let it in though. Alright, cool. We do get the Prowler kill on Basilisk. I have to take 4 damage to get it, but I think it's probably worth it. Get the Basilisk out of the way. They could still have their combat trick though. Trade into the combat trick here. Please don't be Complete Devotion. Zealot's Conviction. Okay, that's fine. That's not as bad. They don't draw an extra card here. Okay, so did we want to snare the adaptive, dose the Basilisk? Can't do both in one turn, but these are the things we want to set up. Can only play 1 card this turn. Probably get our dose out of the way. I feel like even if I snare... Excuse me, farting chair is getting angry. If I snare the adaptive, I'm still just going to end up having to deal with it later. It's just not going to be ideal. So I kind of want to just Mesmerizing Dose adaptive. We can snare Basilisk to get rid of its conviction. We're not going to make any blocks with Dune Mover, so we'll send in for 2. We're definitely under life total pressure here, but our opponent's basically playing off the top. They had 1 card in hand last turn. That's a pretty good card to draw. I'm assuming they just drew that, because otherwise they could have just like killed Dune Mover or something. Well, that is horrific. We might have to be back on snaring adaptive. Actually kind of want a 5th land here, if we're lucky. I feel like I have to snare adaptive badly enough to go Watcher, double block Vorak, and snare adaptive. Like we're entirely in survival mode now. Because our opponent just keeps hitting more plays. We have the card advantage, but the draws just don't stop. That is how Magic works. You do draw a card every turn. Well, I guess I have to snare the Basilisk now. Means I'm never gonna have a shot of whittling down this adaptive. But snaring Basilisk forces them to recast it, stops 6 damage instead of 5, and kills Conviction. I guess I could still snare adaptive, but I have to snare something, or I'm dead. Yeah, I guess I can still snare adaptive. I take 1 more damage, ensnaring adaptive instead? Yeah, that's fine. Right, draw a card off Malcator's Watcher. They replay adaptive as a 1/1. Got an indoctrination attendant. Well, none of my creatures are going to be big enough to block Basilisk, so I think we're just on instant speed Chrome Prowler to try to kill adaptive. That lets them double proliferate the adaptive. Make it a 3/3. Prowler still trades. Proliferates are poison as well, so now we'll have a 5th poison from Basilisk. Okay, thank God they did go for the attack, so we do get to trade into adaptive here. We are corrupted, so Basilisk is now a 3/4 first strike death touch, so we have to hit another one of our bounce spells. Opponent has not drawn a land in like 4 or 5 turns. We have not either, but they've had like 1 card in hand, just keeps rolling stuff off the top here. It is devastating. Feels like our best bet is going to be Bardiche, Chump with a Rebel, hope to top deck land 6 to go Retrofit or Skitterfang for lifelinking 4/4. It's that or Ossification off the top, Surgical Skull Bomb off the top. Anything that deals with this. Opponent has found another land, which hopefully means no spells this turn. I have to chump. No, they had a 6-drop Trampler in their hand the whole time, and we will get incredibly punished for the tap land in the deck. Well, another game to just show you the power of turn 1 evolving adaptive, really. Doing a ton of work. Obviously, Basilisk Conviction in the end there made a big scary threat, but even with just Engulfer, we'd be dying here because of all we took from this early adaptive. Yep, the green-white curve out was good. And we are beaten down to 2-2, heading into round 5. Here we are in game 5. This hand is a 3 mana, 4 mana, and 5 mana play with only 2 lands. There's no 2-drop creatures or anything, it's just interaction. I think we have to mulligan this, it just doesn't really get the game started at all. This hand does not either. Alright, rough draws here, but we're going to have to just keep this one. We'll get rid of the double blue card, I think. Roll with it. Always going to be super rough not to hit any 2 mana plays in this format. Which is why we drafted 6 of them. Pass turn, hold up a Serum Snare now. Yep, that's really, really terrifying stuff on the play from our opponent. They have Slaughter Singer and Duelist of Deep Faith. The Duelist being Toxic 1, the Slaughter Singer buffing all their toxic creatures with +1/+1 every time they attack. I'll have to just snare, I think, the Singer here and just take the 2. Snaring the Duelist is also fine, but then they're going to get us for Toxic 2 potentially next turn because I'm not going to block with my 2/2. Fierce is going to be a pretty good blocker coming up. We probably need to go Untapped Land Skitterfang, Untapped Land Theorist. But I'm never blocking with Skitterfang anyway, so I guess I play Eye of Malcator instead. And Scry. But then it's going to be Theorist turn 4 to be a nice big blocker. Retrofitter is a great draw. Definitely put that on top. There is the Slaughter Singer being recast. Take the 3 damage from Duelist of Deep Faith. I feel like I'd rather retrofit the Eye here and play the Theorist right now, so we'll get the tap land out of the way as well. Retrofitter is a big enough blocker to block the Slaughter Singer. And as long as Retrofitter's on board, we also just have a 4/4 to block the 3/3 first strike. Well, this is going to be a horrific combat trick. Hopefully, they can only use it on one of these combats. Can't really just take a million here. Double combat trick is disgusting. They also draw another card because they targeted a toxic creature. Well, being on the play here definitely makes me the player trying to block. In Phyrexia, all will be one. I feel like I should be entitled to some financial compensation for my damages. Opponent is running out of cards, slowly but surely here, but we're never really going to have a good block for Duelist of Deep Faith, especially now that Conviction has the Corrupted trigger to give an additional +1. So Duelist is attacking as a 5 power first striker. We just need to find removal for that, and we've been pretty bad at that in recent games. I did scry my dose to the bottom, but we still have 3 outs. Ossification, Skull Bomb. I guess we just have 2 outs, because we've already used our Serum Snare, so we have Ossification and Skull Bomb to try to find. Definitely the biggest flaw of our deck. We did not find a lot of removal in our draft pod. Took just about all the removal we could have. Get some draw discard triggers here, get a chump block with Watcher. Rather play Escaped Experiment, I think, but I'm just going to play Skitterfang, probably discard that too. Shepherd's a little better here, we'll draw 2, discard 2. Alright, hit them for 3, gain 3, we're back to 9. Chump block on Duelist, draw another card. Theorist is going to try its best to put in some work for us here. We're going to be digging very far looking for one of those removal spells. Surgical Pay is not one, Justiciar is not one, so let's drop Shepherd down. Draw 2, discard 2. Another Attendant is legit. Pick up Skitterfang and replay it. Keep getting lifelink. Theorist would actually be an okay attacker here as well. They'd have to double block to kill it, where I could kill the Singer if they do. There's a long legs to proliferate for our opponent, and they're done attacking here. Now we just Skitterfang the Shepherd for lifelink every turn, Attendant it, and replay it next turn. Pretty big comeback here. Our opponent has just started hitting lands. They're just running out of gas. And with Transplant Theorist on board, it's really hard for us to run out of gas. So we can make sure we just keep top decking solid plays. They could block with long legs for a chump, but that's all they have here. Okay, Attendant to pick up the Skitterfang. We can drop the Crawling Chorus this turn. I will draw discard here, probably just discarding the Justiciar, because they've got a first striking blocker. Yep, keep the Chrome Prowler. In case they play any flying stuff, we can tap it down at instant speed. The life totals are really turning around here. We still have 5 poison counters and they can proliferate once, so it's essentially 6 poison right now. So that is still a worry, but life total wise, Theorist has really just dug us into straight up value. And we are really turning this boat around here. I can Ossification and still play Chrome Prowler as well. Probably go ahead and get rid of that Duelist so I can start attacking on the ground with my 3/4s. And they have the Hexproof trick for the Duelist to keep it around. And they vanish into eternity to exile the Ossification. I can't do anything about that. Still just Chrome Prowler tap the Duelist here to get the attacks in with the 3/4. Feels fine. Like we get the flyer in either way. Could send in all the mites as well. I lose 2 of them to get some extra damage in. But since they can't block anyway, like as long as I'm getting at least 1 point of damage in by sacrificing some of them, it's probably worth it. Yeah, this makes it so if they just block a mite with Singer, block a mite with Long Legs, they take lethal, they take 11. So they have to actually make an Attendant chump block or trade Convert into one of the mites. So that feels like a pretty great attack. Still going to hold 3 back here because I am at 5 poison against almost all toxic creatures. But it's possible sending in Theorist and Chorus would be solid here as well. We don't have lethal because they could just chump block the Attendants, but I guess it would probably force some chump blocks, so could have been a pretty viable line as well. So we're going to put them down to 3, and they've got 1 final draw step. Otherwise, we have too many creatures on board. We can just go wide and kill them on our next attack. Alright, let's see. Yep, they're going to scoop them up. I was going to play Skitterfang, give one of our 3/4s flying so that we have 2 3-power flyers, and then just attack with everybody so we also have a super wide board state going for lethal. And it looks like it was going to be enough. Pretty big comeback after a really nasty aggressive start from our opponent. Very good showing from the Transplant Theorist there. Digging us through a lot of lands into just casting spell after spell after spell in that game. Round number 6, our opponent will be on the play. We have a turn 2 Justiciar, turn 3 Helm or Prowler. Our opponent has a turn 1 Incubation Sac. That is a card that can spit out 3 3/3 golems over time if they don't put any more oil on it, and if they do, can make even more. There's a Copper Longlegs to Proliferate. We'll go ahead and play the Justiciar. It's our only creature that could be big enough to attack into the Longlegs. And we just make it big enough by playing another artifact. Every single card in our hand puts an artifact on board, one way or the other. Send in the Longlegs. I'll take my 1 damage. Down to 19, and they will drop a Viral Spawning to get a 3/3. Pretty okay trading Justiciar into a 3/3 token here. Do I try to trick them into it with Prowler, or do I just play the 2/3? I think I just play the 2/3. I can probably find a better value Chrome Prowler later. Alright, and they're just going to take the straight up trade. So definitely happy that I just held on to the Prowler. If they were already going to take that trade, no reason to try to trick them into it. Alright, the golems are coming. There is golem number 1 from Incubation Sac. Could retrofitter my Helm to make it a 4/4. Attack with that. It would just trade into a 3/3 though. They double block with 3/3/1/3 there. Could be on Skitterfang or Watcher to make the retrofitter next turn a stronger play. Could be our best bet to get things going. Try to win the game off Malcator's Watcher as a Sarah Angel, a 4/4 Flying Vigilance. Should be pretty good against the green deck. Green-blue, alright. Significantly worse against blue. Blue is like the flyingest color. Also could have a lot of bounce spells. You Tyranax Atrocity. It's pretty nasty. We're basically just immediately corrupted because we don't have any good blocks for that. This is actually really sad because I'm almost 100% certain I'm supposed to double block this 3/3. But if they kill my Watcher, I'm going to hate that. I'm just going to really hope they don't. On board, Watcher is the worst card by far, but if they've played enough of this format, they should think of Retrofitter being something that could buff Watcher. So there's a good reason they might want to kill Watcher there. Luckily, though, they just go for the better on-board play. Alright, so we are immediately corrupted. Viral spawning can pop off, but so can Retrofitter. So we go for that and try to just keep things under control with Chrome Prowler later. It's going to be a very hard-fought race, but a race it is going to be. Skitterfang can help a lot if it weren't for the fact that the Atrocity is toxic. I guess I might have to just trade into Atrocity, honestly. We can still Attendant the Retrofitter back to our hand at a later time. Yeah, we might have to trade here, because the alternative is to go to 6 poison when we know they can play another toxic creature, and they're in the green-blue color pair. That can proliferate quite a lot. I don't think we can really go to 6 poison, so we'll take our trade. Viral spawning, copy number 2, hits the board. There's a surgical skull bomb for it, which is really nice. I really need more mana here. 16 lands is not that low, but I just feel like I'm drawing so few lands these games. Yeah, I'm gonna have to just Dune Mover it up. Play Dune Mover and Skull Bomb here. So we just need more lands pretty badly. And here's our Skull Bomb. We can double block the 3/3 with Dune Mover and Retrofitter, and they'd only kill one of the cards. So they might not attack here. That's our hope, because we don't actually want to trade Retrofitter that badly. Especially because we have Skull Bomb that can kill the token and draw a card. Alright, unfortunately they will be attacking. Don't think I can block here. I'm also going to have a 3/4 that can block that. There's a Mirex from our opponent that can start making Phyrexia Might tokens. Kinda spooky, but we should have plenty creatures soon enough. Alright, so Attendant pick up Helm so we can play another creature off of Helm later. And we have a 3/4 to block their 3/3s. We still have a second Attendant to pick up our Retrofitter. Which is why I'm pretty okay with just doing this. Just trying to establish a very chunky board state to block as much nonsense as possible. Our opponent could sack their long legs to put another counter on Incubation Sac and another poison counter on us. We'd be at 5 poison, and then they can make 2 more 3/3s instead of just 1 more. Unnatural Restoration's a disgusting draw there. We have our 5th poison counter, they have another counter on the sack, and they have another 4/4 Toxic 3 in their hand now. Very much not into that. Here comes Tyranax Atrocity. Well, we have really good blocks for a 4/4 at least. I would really prefer not to take another poison counter, but the only way to not is to chump block. Because we're definitely taking the kill on Atrocity over the kill on the token here. Alright, they kill Attendant, but we kill Atrocity. Is that better than them killing Retrofitter? Yeah, it's better for them to kill Attendant than Retrofitter, I think. Although if we leave Attendant on the board, then we still have a 3/4 to block 3/3s. The problem is we would have to lose Retrofitter and Dune Mover if I trade the other way, because that's only 4 toughness. Yeah, we'll do 5 toughness here, lose Attendant, keep both my creatures. Just lose Attendant. So we're at 6 poison, which is essentially 7 because they have one more Proliferate on board. Do find another land. I don't have anything I can do for 2 mana though, so I can't do 2 things right now. Maybe I could draw into one. Skull Bomb the toxic creature, draw a card. Really need another 3/4 on this board. I guess I could play Gold Warden's Helm and make one of my creatures a 2/4. That'd be a way to use 5 mana. Not the greatest though. I think I want to spin the wheel here. I'm going to get gambly. Kill this and see if we draw a 2 mana card. Okay, we don't. But that's fine. We have a decent enough board state for against just a 3/3 that doesn't have toxic. I'm going to need the 3/4 on board badly enough that I'll just double block if they send in the 3/3 so they don't send in the 3/3. Alright. 6 mana, I can play 2 3-mana cards now. I can also just play Shepherd so we stop getting hit by the flyer. Then they have pretty legitimate attacks on the ground. Let's clutter up the ground here. Gonna need to play Skitterfang soon. If I Chrome Prowler and tap Watcher, we don't get hit for any damage this turn. Because if they attack with everything on the ground, we have our blocks set up. Okay. Nope. Alright, they've changed their mind. I was going to say, I'll trade a 2/2 Rebel for a 3/3 and a Chrome Prowler for a 3/3. Another Attendant? Still 1 mana away from Attendant and a 3-drop here. To immediately recast whenever I pick up. I think now is when we're just playing Shepherd to have a flyer. Skitterfang Prowler is decent here too, but I don't have any attacks to get any lifelink with the Skitterfang until I have a flyer. So I think I need to play the flyer and the next turn I play Skitterfang Prowler and start lifelinking the Shepherd every turn. No attacks from our opponent. They're just going to pass right through. That's going to make me feel nice and safe. Give me a lot of time to set things up. Just drop our Skitterfang. They held a lot of mana up here. They didn't use Mirex either. Is that a frustration click, or do they need 10 mana at instant speed? I guess we'll find out. It might be the combat trick to kill our Shepherd. The +X/+X. I feel like if they had that, they would have like attacked with everybody though, because we might have just died to that. We'll see. If they have the trick, it's going to kill Shepherd on attacks or blocks at some point. Even if I tap down one of their flying blockers, they have 2 different ones because they have a reach creature and a flyer. Just going to draw a card here. They are just going to draw a card here. Alright, we gained 3 back up to 12. Which is nice. And we can post-combat Indoctrination Attendant. Probably rather pick up a Helm than Retrofitter at this point. Turning something into a 4/4 on the ground isn't the craziest thing ever. Let's just add more to our number of creatures. Oh, Mirex is instant speed, that's why. I'm just a doofus. For some reason I thought that one was sorcery speed. Alright, here's a Dune Mover from our opponent. Choosing not to get a land, and they pass the turn. And Basilica Shepherd Skitterfang's gonna just keep doing things. Keep doing our life gain, we can Attendant back the Skitterfang eventually. For this turn, we can go Helm and hold up Prowler, or Helm and play Retrofitter. I think I'll play Helm and Retrofitter. +1 doesn't seem like the craziest equipment ever. So I'm just going to turn the equipment into additional creature rather than buffing up one of my smaller creatures. Alright, our opponent has 5 blockers against 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We have 9 more attackers than they have blockers. Did we lethal next turn? Probably not, and if I don't, then they toxic me to death. Okay, so if I play Chrome Prowler to tap one of their creatures, I'm gonna have... Oh my god, this math is ridiculous. I'm gonna have 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 attackers against 5 blockers. They block our 5 biggest creatures, so they blocked there. They take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Pretty sure they die on board. If they don't, I just lose though, so I should probably, just in case I'm bad at math, just wait. Because I died all this toxic on the crackback. Okay, we're going to do the math again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every 3 power creature is blocked. Which means I hit for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That's more than I said last time. My math might be horrible here. Even flying on the helm. And then one of our 3 power creatures gets in instead of an additional 2 power creature. Alright, if they have like an instant speed removal spell, then it might not be lethal. But I am fairly certain it's on board lethal. And we'll just find out. Whatever, let's just flunge at this point. Again, I didn't have to do this, I could just keep doing the shepherd thing, gaining more life, and then... like next turn we could flunge, which would definitely be lethal. I'm pretty sure it is here as well. Yep, we will put them to -3. That was 16 damage. I think I'm once again bad at math. 4 and 2 we will be as we head into round number 7. Here we are in round 7. Opponent is on the play. We get to drop a turn 2 Justiciar into turn 3 Helm or Prowler. Pretty much the same kind of curve we have pretty often. The deck is relatively consistent. Double blue to start it off. Well, we drew our 1-drop on turn 2. Always the saddest. It's just going to sit in our hand and cry for a little bit. Opponent still has nothing. Let's just play Helm then. They could have a Prowler to trade into Justiciar, that'd be fine. They do not. They will take 3 damage and we will gain 3 life. We're at 23, they're at 17. And Azuri, Stalker of Spheres, is the play. Well, I can just keep attacking with 3 power creatures, but now every time they proliferate, they're going to be drawing cards. Play an Eye of Malcator here, potential 4 power attacker in the future. And it triggers Justiciar, so that can attack. Scry into Justiciar is a fine play next turn, and 4th land is also valuable. Do I want to go Justiciar Chorus next turn? Is that okay? Honestly, that's probably fine. Next turn we go Justiciar Chorus. After that we go probably Prowler. Yeah, I think I'm keeping that. Take another 3. They're down to 14. We are up to 26. Opponent will pass turn. I don't like that. Well, we'll try to play Justiciar. Yep, can't get around that counterspell. That counters no matter how much mana I have up. Proliferates as well to trigger Azuri. Now I get no artifact down for Eye of Malcator, which is super bad. Contagious Vorak can draw them a card from Proliferate or just draw them a land regularly. And here's a Viral Spawning, a bunch of 3/3s from our opponent. Could play Attendant, pick up the Helm, that puts an artifact on board so I can attack with a 4/4 and a 3/2 here. It's pretty fine. Take some trades here. Clear out some of these 3/3s. Ooh, we get to kill a Zuri. That is very nice. Meldweb Curator is the play. They put an instant or sorcery from their grave on top of their library. They're going to put their counterspell there. Or just don't, if they would rather draw blind. They're going to put Viral Spawning there to get another 3/3. Fair enough. Okay, so I don't have Justiciar anymore. Or the Eye of Malcator anymore, so I don't need to play an artifact this turn. That being said, that's all I can play, are just more artifacts. Do I want to Prowler down the Vorak and just attack with everybody? If they block the 2/2 and kill it, they take 5 and 3 poison. Sacrifice a Rebel to deal 5 damage to them. Feels fine. That seems okay. Sack the Rebel, deal 5 damage and 3 poison. They are going to play Viral Spawning. And now we've chipped them down to dying in 3 hits from Basilica Shepherd if we can land that card. And we've got plenty blockers for everything they're doing. Their blue is all tapped right now, so we just play Shepherd. And now we just keep blocking their stuff and chipping in with the Shepherd. 3 turns of Shepherd will win the game. Alright, Shepherd turn 1, here we go. We play Bardiche so I could put that on Shepherd later. They're down to 6, here's Bardiche. Also a very good blocker on this board. Trades into their 3/4s. If they have any of the enchantment-based removal in blue, that'll keep the Shepherd locked down. Having this backup attendant is really good. Ooh, now I can play Malcator's Watcher and Retrofitter. I feel like that's better than moving the Bardiche over. Although, I mean, they have 5 blockers. We actually just have lethal on board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take 2 more on the ground, 3 in the sky. If I move Bardiche over, lethal on board, but it's a little risky. I'm just going to hit for 3. Because we still, like, definitely lethal them in 2 turns. Unless they have a board wipe, which I don't believe green or blue have in the format. So now we have 2 separate flyers that are big enough to hit for lethal. Okay, Noxious Assault. We'll have to make all our chump blocks, but we'll be fine. We just get 5 poison here. I mean, I can take... I can actually just take 10. At 29 life. Yeah, we'll make these chump blocks take 10. They can replay a Viral Spawning, but they need to deal with 2 different flyers still. Alright, and I believe that should be game. And it certainly is. We are now 5-2, heading into round number 8. Here we are for round 8. Opponent is on the play. We do not have any 2-mana cards in our hand, but we are on the draw, and we have several powerful 3-drops. 6 2-mana cards in the deck, we just need to hit 1 in the first 2 draw steps. Actually have 7 cards that cost 1 or 2 if we're trying to hit anything, like the Crawling Chorus or one of our 2-drops. If I don't hit any lands, it's pretty bad, but if I hit just 1 land, I've got all these spells I can cast. I think I got a mulligan this one, though. Alright, there we go. Well, we have no white source. Mana base has been pretty jankety today. Just some awkward hands you can draw with any kind of deck, even if we were 17 lands. Do I keep this on the draw? I still don't feel like I do. Roll to 5. We have to keep this. Looks like we should have just kept the first hand at this rate. Get rid of the snare, keep the potential permanent removal. Yeah, wow, we really just should have kept a 7. That was a really rough mulligan. The 6 and the 5 card hands are just worse than our pretty bad opening hand. Well, I had the right idea, because this is a matchup we needed to 2-drop. Can't really ossify these 1/1s with haste. Yeah, even if we keep that opening hand where we're not doing anything till turn 3 and not doing anything unless we top deck a land, we're under just as much pressure as we are right now, which is quite a bit. These abilities aren't that scary, so I think I'm cool to dose the Aspirant. Save the ossification for something later that might have better abilities we want to deal with. Plus, if they're playing Aspirant, they're probably playing 4 Mirrored and Equipment, which ossification is really good against because of our Attendant. Yeah, so now we can ossify the token and Attendant the ossification back to hand. Yeah, our opponent just has every 1-drop in the book, and it's definitely beating us down. Now they can just put Splitter on any of their 1-mana cards. Yeah. Well, at least we weren't really punished for the Mold of 5 here, because we're going to die with cards left in hand, which means we're going to die pretty much the exact same way that we would have died with the opening hand, where the hand is just too slow for this match. 5 mana here. Chrome Prowler does slow them down a good bit. We tap down whatever they have the Splitter on, and then they can't attack with the other 2. Problem is the other 2 can already just shoot us for 2 damage with their oil counters. If I play Attendant this turn, I have a 3/4 to block the 3/1. I am actually stopping more damage that way. Obviously picking up the ossification here. Another land, they might not have the removal for Attendant, might not have the Hex Gold Slash here to deal 4 to our creature with Toxic. Or the Planar Disruption to make it so it can't attack or block. Gleeful Demolition. Well, it's going to give them 3 1/1s, so they have a very wide board state to keep hitting us. The Scamps are also at 4 oil total, so they can hit us down to 4 life. Oh, good gravy. Yeah, we're definitely just dying to the double Scamps. They're shooting us for 4. Even if we play both our creatures, we have 3 blocks total. Well, I guess if they attack with the Scamps, then... If they don't attack with the Scamps, we can block all but one of their creatures, and if they do attack with the Scamps, we can kill the Scamps. So I think we actually just play Eye of Malcator and hold up Chrome Prowler here, so that we have 3 blockers. And have another Chrome Prowler, so next turn I can ossify in Chrome Prowler. Definitely taking Scamp damage, which is bad. If they hit a Volt Charge, we're just dead, but even if we kill a Scamp with ossification right now, we're still dying to Volt Charge. It's basically an extra 4 damage with 1 Scamp and an extra 5 with 2 of them. Oh wait, no, it's even worse than that. It's an extra 5 damage with 1 Scamp, because it puts an oil counter on Scamp, hits us for 3, so that's 4 damage. Then it proliferates, it puts another oil, so... Yeah, Volt Charge is 5 damage with 1 Scamp on board. 7 damage with 2 on board. Good grief. Alright, well, let's block 3/4 of their creatures. You make them use a Scamp right now, I guess. Might as well. Nothing else to tap. I think we kill everything but Chorus, so we have more time to deal with them having a wide board state. Like if I kill Chorus here, they're still going to have another creature to be attacking with, but if I wait to kill it till later, once I have more creatures on board, it feels a little safer. And we just want to reduce their board state as much as possible. Okay, so now I can ossify the tapped Scamp. And have a Chrome Prowler up still. This Scamp is out of oil, but if I target this Scamp, they'll just tap it and it will also be out of oil. They have only one potential attacker at this point, basically. I think we're actually just on the poison game plan here. Might even just be attack with everybody and play Chrome Prowler on blocks. Have 2 blockers for their 2 creatures, but if they top deck like Chimney Rabble or something, we'll need more blockers. Yes, no, even if they top deck Chimney Rabble and play it, we'll just play Prowler before they declare attacks. Sure. Chimney Rabble is a 3/3 haste that makes a 1/1 goblin. Alright, they're down to 13. That's some amount of work put in there. Play a land, move to combat. Let them go to combat. And they are going to pass turn. They are smarter than that. Well, do we wait till our turn to play Chrome Prowler so that we can draw a card off Eye of Malcator? Well, draw a card so that we can draw a card off Fair Basilica and then attack with Eye of Malcator. They're at 13 life. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Pretty close to lethal. I think I do wait on Prowler here. Okay, we hit another land and Indoctrination Attendant. That is interesting. 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. I can only play 1 card this turn. I don't love not holding up a Chrome Prowler, but I do like attacking with pretty much everybody. So I kind of want to just play this Attendant. That'll trigger the artifact thing. That'll trigger the Eye of Malcator. And then I'll have a 3/4 blocker. I guess I could have maybe found lethal with this when I had more mana to pick up like a mesmerizing dose. I probably still kill them next turn, and it's safer to have 2 blockers up. At 3 life. They hit like a combat trick, will die. If I only have 1 blocker. Yeah. Alright. 2 blockers for their 2 attackers so we don't die to a combat trick. And then we can try to kill them next turn. Duelist of Deep Faith, another creature. And then our opponent has just drawn like straight up nothing. We can shut off the Duelist. They have 1 blocker total to block the Eye. Then they take 3, 6, 9, well over lethal. Prowler just gets us there. That was a tremendously lucky game. Our opponent just drew way too many lands, and we're gonna just roll in there with those Chrome Prowlers with that Eye of Malcator and really turn things around and get our 6th win. We are now 6-2, heading into the final boss and the final game of Magic. Win or lose. We've also gone all the way from the very bottom of Bronze to the Bronze Nipple tier, which is nice. Alright, here we are in today's final game of Magic. We have 2 Mandible Justiciars to get things rolling. We have a Dune Mover to find our island, and an Attendant to bounce some nonsense. This is a very keepable hand. Our opponent is on the play again, so we will be probably on the defensive if they are an equally aggressive deck to ours. Yep, that is a turn 2 Slaughter Singer. Got a Retrofitter. I'm going to go ahead and just Dune Mover for the island here, so I can kind of lock in the ability to play the Retrofitter soon. Plus, I would much rather declare a block on their Slaughter Singer with a Dune Mover than a Justiciar, because we don't care about the Toxic. This is kind of a 2-1 with no text on board, whereas the Justiciar, we do care about the lifelink. Alright, and no attacks from our opponent. We could just turn Dune Mover into a 4-4 and hope that that keeps them off of us for now. Or I could play Justiciar to try to set up the Retrofitter Justiciar play to turn things around. I'm pretty sure I need to play very heavily on the defensive here against Slaughter Singer Duelist of Deep Faith as the start from our opponent. So let's just play the best blocks, which is Retrofitter on Dune Mover. And even if they have some way to kill Dune Mover, we again have that combo where we can use Attendant to pick up Retrofitter and use it on something else later. Ichor-Spit Basilisk is the play from our opponent, a Death Toucher, so that can definitely attack into whatever nonsense I'm doing. So we'll want to play something with at least 3 power to trade into that. Honestly, trading Dune Mover into that might just be fine, because then we just play Attendant the turn after, pick up Retrofitter. Just go double Justiciar this turn. Bardiche coming up is pretty good too. Yeah, I'm still holding off blocks here. And passing the turn. Bladed Ambassador from our opponent. 2 mana 3-1 with an oil counter they can use to give it indestructible in 1 turn. Okay, now we are on Bardiche. And then we probably just try to take over the game with Bardiche, where we just keep attacking with our worst creature every turn and then moving Bardiche to our second worst creature after that one dies. Seems fine. These Justiciars do attack a lot better than they block, so might be worth sending them in right now. I have to trade 1 into the oil counter from Ambassador, but I'm going to have to trade something into that oil counter at some point regardless. Actually does seem fine. Lose a Justiciar to an oil counter and then probably just ping them for 3, and we go up to 26. Oh, no blocks. So they must have some Proliferate, and they're going to try to have the Ambassador just be indestructible forever by repeatedly putting more and more oil counters on it. Opponent's still on 3 lands, which means they have 4 more spells in there, which means our additional land draws here could start being a problem. Play Attendant, buff both Justiciars, and just make the same attack again. Although this time with Bardiche as well. Yeah, I think I'm cool with that. Although picking up the Bardiche is the best thing to pick up with Attendant here. You know, I'm going to have a 3-4 Attendant to block with. Do I send in the Dune Mover as well, actually? This is actually awkward, because I can't send in the Justiciars unless I give them 1 more power, which means I can't... I have to play Attendant pre-combat, but if I play Attendant pre-combat, I'm picking up Bardiche, and then the 4-3 doesn't get in. I'm actually just going to send in Dune Mover and the 4-3 here. Then if the Rebel dies, we pick up the Bardiche. If the Dune Mover dies, we pick up Retrofitter. Feels pretty unlikely that I'll want to pick up Retrofitter, though. Okay, so they are going to use the oil counter to kill the Bardiched creature. Yeah, we'll play the long game here. We'll use the Attendant to pick up the Bardiche. And they're over it. They don't like the synergy at all. They're tired of not drawing lands, anything like that. Maybe they got something to do, somewhere to be. Just gonna end the game. Maybe it's because I play pretty slow, especially when I'm recording the video. A lot of different things that it could be there, but they are over it. They are done playing the blue-white value pile, and that means this is going to be a trophy run. 7-win run here. We turned our 2-2 start into a 7-2 finish. Always feels great, and definitely shows you how swingy this format is, where it's pretty much always confident, even when we were losing a lot of games, that this deck is pretty good and could get a 7-win run. But at the start there, our first wins were really close, and some of our losses felt really devastating. So some of that had me really questioning the quality of this deck, but overall, definitely good enough to get a 7-win run. I think even on my main account, if I were playing against Mythic players at the top Mythic queues, I would be happy to have this deck drafted. I think it's pretty solid. It has issues like every deck does. It's not a 10 out of 10, but I think it's a solid 6, maybe even a 7. Biggest issue here is the lack of removal, only having Mesmerizing Dose and Ossification. We do make up for that a little bit by having some other interaction with Serum Snare and Skull Bomb, but that's the biggest issue that we had, losing that one game pretty heavily to Skitterfang alongside the oiled up Thingamabob. And some more removal could have very clearly helped us out in that match. So that was the biggest downside. Other than that, everything really got its chance to shine in here, pretty much every single card. We had a game where we really used Theorist to discard a ton of extra lands and just keep playing spells on our opponent curving out. Chrome Prowlers were often activating Eyes out of nowhere and making some good blocks. Retrofitters were always incredible. Juicing up our stuff, Justiciars were great. Every single thing in the deck, pretty sure every single card in the deck got played at least once, and was in some way or the other helpful in our victories. So very nice. Very long, hard-fought draft today. For this quick draft of Phyrexia, all will be won. Well, that is going to end today's video. If you enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more, just stick around on the channel. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.